almost everybody here. But if you don't know me, I'm Lorelei Stewart, the director here at Gallery 400. So glad to have you here tonight. I know that there was a lot of competition for your attention, so I appreciate you being here. Just so you know, Rachel, there was like 3 other events this night. Before I introduce Rachel Cook as our guest, I'd like to alert you to some upcoming events, some of which you may know about and some of that you may not. In conjunction with our new system, Krista Donner's beautiful show in the gallery, we are hosting a number of events, one of which I can't tell you about because it's not completely final, but we'll get that to you soon. So Monday, October 17th, we are hosting an event called Conceivable Futures. It's a conversation on how the climate crisis is shaping intimate decisions around reproduction and parenting. So how does the climate crisis that we're in affect how any parent, I'm a parent, might make decisions about their child, or any person who's not a parent make decisions about how many children to have or whether to have children. So that will be at 5:30 in this room on October 17th. Then on the last day of the show, October 22nd, which is a Saturday, we will host Multimedia Time Machine, an all-ages audiovisual workshop and performance in which Krista Donner, Selena Trepp, fellow artist Selena Trepp, and musician Ben Lamar will lead participants in using electronic and acoustic sound, overhead projectors, shadow forms, and transparent materials to create a real-time video collaboration that will layer the past and the future. So children, adults of all ages. But that's Saturday morning at from 10 to 12. That's the same day that the Arts Club has its 100 centennial celebration in the afternoon, so we didn't want to compete with that. So hopefully you can come to both. And then there's this other event that we'll plan and get the word out to you. Then the night before is the Next Voices lecture, which is Streetopia, a conversation on art activism and gentrification with Eric Lyles, who's written the book Streetopia and was part of the project Streetopia, which was in central San Francisco and confronting the massive gentrification there in the Tenderloin. That conversation will be between Eric Lyles and several Chicago-based activist and artist Mark Fisher. So that will be Friday, October 21st at 6 p.m. And I hope you can come back for one or more of those events. On to tonight. We are pleased to have Rachel Cook as our guest. She is the curator at DiverseWorks in Houston, and a number of grad students in the room have met with her yesterday and today. I think those are really great experiences. And on Saturday, Rachel was a juror for the Propeller Fund, which is a granting program that Gallery 400 runs in partnership with Three Walls and 4 other jurors, and Rachel decided the 12 awardees that we will announce sometime soon. But they're great, they're really great, and we really appreciate the work you did on that, Rachel. So, as she'll talk about today, Cook's curatorial work reconsiders the relationship between images and objects and investigates methods of delegation that are embedded within performative and participatory work. While at DiverseWorks, she has organized commissioned projects by Chelsea Knight, Liz Magic Laser, Kristen Lucas, Pepe Marr, Heather and Ivan Morrison, Sheila Pepe, Sondra Perry, Mark Tribe, and Wu Tsang, among many others. She recently curated a group exhibition and performance piece conceived by French artist Julien Prévieux, What Shall We Do Next?, which considers ideas of the real in relationship to physical materials, technology, and advertising. And another recent project was the School of Movement of the Technicolor People, a large-scale performance platform by LA-based artist Taisha Paget in collaboration with Ashley Hunt and Kim Zumpf. I think we'll hear about both of these today. That project by Taisha and Ashley and Kim, the question posed was, what is a black dance curriculum today? Cook's writing has appeared in a number of art journals, and prior to joining DiverseWorks, she worked at Documentus 13's publications team and was a fellow for the ISCP program in New York. She holds an MA from CCS, or the Center for Curatorial Studies at Bard College, and a BFA from San Francisco Art Institute. And we should say congratulations, because last year she received a curatorial fellowship from the Andy Warhol Foundation, which is a pretty rare fellowship. So please help me welcome Rachel Cook.
Thanks, Lorelei. Thanks for coming. So I'm going to talk about a couple of projects, the recent projects, and then I'm going to show you guys some clips of some of the videos of Julien's project. Julien Prévieux is a French artist. I'm going to show you the most recent piece, which is Patterns of Life, and then I'll show you a clip from What Shall We Do Next. But in the What Shall We Do Next work, he's been for more than 10 years researching and collecting gestures prescribed by technological devices. So when you slide to unlock your phone, or you pinch to zoom a photograph, these are all patented gestures, meaning the companies, the US-based or Korean-based companies or whatever companies. I think he mainly focused on US and a few Asian companies. They are required to kind of write out a use for this device before it even gets invented. So it's kind of a speculatory gesture of thinking about. So he was really interested in this question of why do we move the way we do? Who owns our gestures? How will we move our bodies in 1 year, in 10 years, or in 100 years? So then he began kind of a series of ideas around this and then ended up working with a choreographer. And then the choreographer, they essentially made a performance work and a video piece talking. Some of it is reading the transcripts from these patents and then also actually miming them or doing them. The Patterns of Life piece he made right after the What Shall We Do Next, and in this one he worked with dancers from the Paris Opera Ballet, and essentially this was filmed in like a black box theater, and you'll see he writes all the text, the narration. So I'm just going to play a little segment from this. It is this particular segment.
I created this map from the date book of a young woman living in the 16th arrondissement who made note of everywhere she went in Paris. The map reveals the neighborhoods that she spends the most time in and the areas of Paris she visits the least. Of particular note is the almost total absence of trips beyond the Avenue Henri Martin. This is just one example, but it well illustrates the reality of the phenomenon known as the sphère bourgeoise. That is, an area roughly delimited by her home at Trocadéro, her job in the 6th arrondissement, her piano teacher at Saint-Augustin, and her school at the Louvre. This group of trajectories demonstrates how remarkably narrow the boundaries of the city of Paris become for any one individual. Our relationships, friendships, and work occupy an extremely small area of geography. This diagram, a veritable example of modern poetry, will undoubtedly cause us to feel discomfort, if not indignation, at the very idea that it is possible to live in such a way.
I'm jumping, you can watch this, but I just want to show you these two particular segments.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
It's like looking in a global ocean for an object that may or may not be a fish. It might be anything, and it might be important, but at first, we're not even sure it exists. And whatever it might be, it's constantly moving and interacting with a huge number of other objects. These objects might make up an organized school of fish, or they might not be related at all. But we do know that we need to find the object, identify what it is, and figure out how it relates to all the other objects, whether fish or seafowl. It's like going after the unknown unknowns. Things we didn't know. We used to know what we were looking for, and were therefore looking for things. Now we don't know what we're looking for. And instead of looking for things, we're looking for activities. Activity-based intelligence is the most important analytic methodology the intelligence community must master in order to succeed in the future.
Okay, and then I'm just gonna show you a little clip of the what shall we do next.
2011.
2009. 2009. 2009.
2007.
2008.
2009.
2009.
2008.
2010. 2006.
2007.
Which gesture means copy rather than move? Do I wave to my digital devices more frequently than to my friends?
2007.
Some have tried to provide a workaround to the pinch to zoom gesture. The new patent describes a circular movement for controlling the zoom-in function on a screen. Will they go so far as to patent picture rotation by pinching?
2007.
2009.
'Some have tried to develop a gestural language. A single finger gesture would mean one thing. The same gesture with two fingers would mean another. 3, 4, or 5 finger gestures would mean yet more. In the same way, the early developers of the Xerox Star computer spent considerable effort and time developing a systematic clicking language for the computer mouse, but their efforts were lost. Gestures used to be fleeting and did not leave any evidence that they had ever happened, which meant that if a gesture was made and either no response or the wrong response was received, there was little information available to help understand why.
Okay. So I saw that in its form of, in kind of a art fair context where he had showed it as that going back and forth between the video and then the actual dancers were doing a live performance. And then what ended up happening is this. So we presented it as a stage work. We found dancers in Houston, and one of them was from Portland, and he kind of reconstructed the script and added new material about Martha Graham. And there is a particular court case in which Martha Graham's company owns the rights to the props and the stage and the music, but another collector or supporter owns the actual score, in which, so the work can never be presented unless you get permission from both these entities. So what happens in the dance is they move through a similar kinds of gestures that you saw in the video, but then they also, because they're trained in modern dance, they perform the Martha Graham work for you, or an excerpt. And then they're also talking about who owns a choreographer's work, and how does one decide who owns that gesture. Julian's also interested in how gestures get introduced in through Hollywood movies, so like Minority Report or other things in which the waving to activate a sync and how that got introduced much earlier than the phenomenon actually existed in our lives. So he kind of pulls back and forth between the actual language from the patents, things that happen in Hollywood movies, and then these choreographic instances in which the ownership is questioned. So this was part of this bigger project. There was a group exhibition at DiverseWorks, and I'm just gonna kind of flip through some of these images. That had the same title, and it had this collective from Miami, which at the time was called Versace, and now I believe they are called Noguchi Breton because they keep getting cease and desist letters from the fashion houses. So what you see on the walls are appropriated fabrics from Versace, that then we hand painted on the wall. And then other artists' work got hung on top of it, and then there was a series of furniture that got made that was part of the exhibition. Danielle Dean was also in the group show as well, which is the castle kind of pop up in the background, and I'll play a couple clips of her videos as well. And then Kristen Lucas, the television monitors, this GoPro piece, and also we did I don't know if you guys are familiar with Kristen Lucas's piece that she's made in a variety of different ways, where she went and changed it's called Refresh, and she goes to a California court and asks a judge, if she can refresh her name to the same name, just like hitting refresh on your screensaver. And it's great because we presented it like a zine, and it has all the transcripts of her talking to the judge, arguing for why this is a refresh, and how she kind of goes into like a poetic and philosophical argument of how this is important to her, for her to do right now. So in the exhibition, we showed Julian's Patterns of Life, and then, so then I'll go through, this is Danielle Dean. So Danielle is an artist that was in the core program. She has been making a series of works about a particular Nike sneaker. So this Nike sneaker was released in 2003. It was called True Red. It was marketed as a vampire sneaker. That's it. She made an animation and turned the kind of True Red the sneaker into the protagonist. And the sneaker morphs into these various forms: a bat, a castle, this red substance. So I'm just going to play you this animation that she made. It's a very short. struggling. Let's try it. Oh. Here, maybe I might, from her website, I might have loaded a little bit easier. So these are actually all hand-drawn individual drawings that then it was important to her to do that as part of the piece. So she thinks about how animation is both something that was used by avant-garde artists as a way of seeking social change, and then it's also how it gets adopted by private companies seeking to better market their products, and then how it kind of brings these inanimate commodities to life. So she's really interested in how the animation can kind of speak to our imagination and this potential between when objects break down and shapeshift together. So what was interesting is, so we showed that animation, and then we also showed this castle, which so was taking a drawing from the animation, and then we made it a sculpture. And then we also, before I get to Taisha, Danielle ended up doing a small performance that Nat has since turned into this video. Wait, I'll just stop this for a second before. So this is called A Portrait of True Red. So basically it was part of her Creative Capital project, and so all of these pieces she kind of is seeing as kind of a body of work that she's making. So in this Portrait of True Red, it's a young Houstonian, she's 18, that we found to play this character. So she became True Red, and also she's Sam Jones. So she kind of merges into this fictional character, and the story is told through a monologue, and it's compiled from a variety of texts. So it's anything from historical accounts of political violence, such as the slave revolts in 1700, to the police brutality, to violence against the workers in China who make the Nike sneakers. So the script is kind of taken from fragments of Nike's marketing strategies, including the advertising copy, bodily gestures from people featured in Nike commercials, online reviews of Nike products, and she's kind of been researching vampires also. So this was like another part of her project. So I'll just play, again, just a small clip of this piece.
One night, one bloody fire-filled night, 21,000 attacked.
Those are the sneakers.
Sam Jones never suited me. I didn't like the way I looked. I didn't like the way my parents looked. I didn't want to grow up.
So this is a longer piece that she's working on. So that brings me to Taisha. So this project was called the School for the Movement of the Technicolor People. It was a large-scale installation and performance platform that acted as a dance school. So what you're seeing is the same gallery. And what happened is I don't know if you can tell in the image, but in so the walls that were in the What Shall We Do Next show, they actually got used in this and got pulled apart and then leaned up against the wall. So where the kind of video image is in the back, that's actually just a wall that then we moved to the other side. This piece originated at Lace in Los Angeles and was there for 7 weeks. And then the installation has some similarities in the sense of that the carpet was fit to size of the Lace space. And there are some video elements that are similar, but I would say the other detailed parts of the arrangement are very different. And then in ours, this was in the front of the gallery. We kind of created this little cocoon structure that was all made from recycled doors. There's like a reuse warehouse space in Houston where from homes that are getting destroyed, then this is material that you can go as an artist and pick up and use and reuse. Okay, so the school, so kind of, I'm gonna read I would say somewhere between like a mission statement and like a kind of mantra. The school responds to the limited positioning of Black and queer movers in the dance and art worlds amidst the evolving violence against Black bodies, gentrification, and the persistent erasure of communities of color throughout history. The school was inspired by a Black high school believed to be founded by ancestors of pageant in East Texas in 1990s. So you see this image that's kind of like a Google Earth image that is essentially where the narrative of this school from her family is thought to have been at one point. Considering a reversed path of the Great Migrations, where millions of African Americans left the rural South for the West, North, and Midwest, this project began in Los Angeles, traveled to Austin, and went to Houston. This multidisciplinary platform was built from the dance company WXPT, We Are the Paper, We Are the Trees, which uses dance moves, protest forms, weight exchange, concealment strategies, and the everyday movement vocabulary of survival and celebration that structure Black and queer life. All of these ideas inform this project's central research question: what is a Black dance curriculum today? So this was a collaboration between Taisha Pageant, the WXPT company, and Ashley Hunt and Kim Zumpf. These are other elements in the installation. There were photographs that were taken, some of which were taken with the Los Angeles members, and then we also took photographs with the Houston and Austin individuals. So just imagine this is the space as it is, kind of dormant, if you will, not active. And then what happened is we essentially found Houston members to participate in, they became the core company. So they led, these are images from the performance, and we brought in 5 of the Los Angeles members to kind of join with the Houston members, and then they created a score with Taisha, and then they ended up, the LA members go back, and then the Houston members ended up teaching workshops for 5 weeks every Saturday, so it became kind of a Saturday school. But then there were visual elements that were kind of part of this project as well. And in Austin, it was embedded within a sort of performance festival, and kind of acted more like a rehearsal studio. That was part of it. Okay, and then I will talk about a project that I'm still trying to figure out. And I'm just at the beginning stages of this project. So I'm developing this project around a series of Walker Evans photographs. I think it's probably going to be around the 2 series of Walker Evans photographs, but when I wrote the proposal, it was for this one particular series. So these are the kind of iconic Walker Evans photographs that we know about. They were taken in the rural South after the Depression around 1936, 37. These are some other photographs that he took in 1955 called The Beauties of the Common Tool, in which there are very stark portraits of just tools from a hardware store. Then there are these photographs. So these photographs, and this is kind of a publication for a project that was done at the Met in 2001. So Walker Evans was commissioned to photograph the objects in the African Negro art exhibition at MoMA. I'm interested in using these photographs as a catalyst for discussing contemporary ideas of race, culture, and class. They were taken in order to present the African objects as works of art connected to a Western art historical tradition rather than ethnographic objects or artifacts. There's 477 of these. It's a suite of prints. They were created, there's multiples of them. They were gifted to historic African-American colleges, especially in the South. There are also a set at New York Public Library, and there's a few others that got purchased. So on the one hand, I guess what I'm kind of interested in is that these images occupy this dual status or kind of multiple status. They are collected in museums, and then they're also used as educational tools in libraries, and they were given for free. And then supposedly, and I haven't really found evidence of this yet, but they got reprinted into textbooks. That's the piece I'm not 100% sure if that's true. So I'm kind of interested in researching the history and the narrative of these photographs and the sculptures with a group of contemporary artists and thinkers. And I think for me, some of the questions are thinking about the photograph and the object, and thinking about how these images present visual evidence, and how is the notion of a cultural experience reimagined through Evans' portrayals. So I think for me, it's like in our current era that has an overwhelming amount of images that doesn't seem to end, and yet the weight and meaning of those images is continuously questioned. So for instance, David Joselitz wrote this little piece in Artforum a while ago where he posed the question, if the visual representation of a police officer pressing his arm against Eric Garner's throat could not speak for itself, then doesn't this present a challenge for how we define the politics of art? How, more importantly, these iconic images, visual representations, or evidence can no longer be said to accurately represent a historic event or cultural moment. In my curatorial practice, I'm fascinated by the overlap of legal quandaries and conversations about contemporary photography and sculpture. What constitutes evidence? How can a forensic object speak? What does an image represent in a legal or political forum versus a dialogue about contemporary art? How do these ideas inform contemporary artists? So that's kind of where I'm sitting with this, and I'm just in the kind of like archive trying to find out information about these. But I do think, at least for me, I've realized that it seems that I'm working in these two different realms, but I do feel like they are connected through these gestures and images and objects. So I think I'll kind of leave it there, and maybe we can go to questions and have a conversation. Thank you. Yeah.
I have a microphone because we are recording today. And when you ask a question, sorry. So I have the microphone, and because we're recording, if you do ask a question, if you could use the mic, then it gets recorded. So I don't know if anyone wants to start off.
Hi, Rachel.
Hi, Claire.
You're working across gesture and image, object, really interestingly, and I'm wondering how you're seeing the stuff that's left behind in the gallery, like with Taisha's project, how successful you're seeing that as being with audiences with absence of those gestures that are filling that space.
That was hard. I think with Taisha's project, there was an audio track that kept playing, and it was a particular radio interview that was on a loop, which I think provided some physical body in the space, or kind of voice in the space. I went back and forth between feeling like it wasn't as successful when there wasn't stuff happening in it. While I did find parts of the way that they use the sculptural installation and the kind of architectural moves that they did, I found that really interesting. I think it's really hard to sustain something like that over a 4-week time period when the artists don't live in that location. So I think what made the LACE project a little bit easier is that all of the WXPT members lived in Los Angeles. So then it just became kind of this hangout, meet up space, and then they were planning workshops and doing stuff in the space the whole time. And I think for us that was a challenge of And it also just was, just frankly, it's a different culture in Houston of, that's not a typical thing where you would go to an art gallery to hang out. So I think that was something that we struggled with as a kind of, but I do think that there were certain elements, visual elements that happened in the making of it that were very different from Lace and really made it also a beautiful sculptural installation to look at and to be inside. I think it's just always that thing of trying to get people not afraid to come in. And we, opened it up. Like you could come in and even if you weren't leading the Saturday school, you could come in and use the space. But that was hard, yeah.
Does anybody else want to ask a question?
One thing I really liked at the end, or like you were talking at the end about this current project and talking about like the political and legal sort of side of kind of objecthood and like that life. And I was like wondering what you see the exhibitions as like a site of praxis, or like if you do see those exhibitions as like something do you see it as asking a question or opening up a bigger conversation, or do you see it as like a form of like activist praxis?
The exhibition itself?
Yeah, or like, kind of like.
I mean, right now I'm seeing the failure in exhibitions constantly. Or just like the fact that I can't get them to do what I want them to do, which is I want the structure of the exhibition to be different. And I think that's at least what I've realized is that the What Shall We Do Next, I basically embedded 5 solo projects in a group show and then had this ability to do a theater performance. Kristen Lucas did like a film screening at Aurora Picture Show, and then Danielle Dean, we did a version of that video before we like test drived it, where she was able to do it in the gallery space. So I think what I'm realizing is I want exhibitions to be sites of production and presentation, and I want them to be the exhibition time and performance time to be rejigged and be more connected and talk to each other. And so I think that's also in Taisha's project, that's the part I liked the most. But I think there were certain sustainability structures that were a little bit easier to duplicate in the What Shall We Do, or to make manifest and happen in the What Shall We Do Next piece, where for some reason it was a little bit harder with the school project. And those were for a variety of reasons, some of which were kind of out of both of our controls. But yeah, I think with this Walker Evans project, my conundrum right now is that because of Diverse Works physical architectural gallery, I cannot show any of the Walker Evans prints because of the climate control issues and because of security. And maybe that's an okay thing. But then what I've been thinking through is the reason I sort of went down this path is that I found that they were part of the Museum of Fine Arts Houston collection. And now I have since found that they might not be the exact suite of prints, because there were hundreds and hundreds of copies of the whole suite. So they might not be the full set, which supposedly comes in a particular box and has. So that's even more interesting to me, that they're this weird lone set, that it's not a complete set that then still exists in this collection. So I've been thinking about the possibility, and then I also have the Menil that has an amazing African art collection. So I've been trying to figure out, are there ways I can work with those institutions and embed parts of my ideas in those institutions, like in a collection rehang, where it's not like trying to do a multi-site documenta, biennial kind of whatever, but like a kind of very subtle intervention in those collections that could have some public programming attached to it. And then other aspects of the project could happen in a physical gallery space, but they could also happen in a theater. and they could also happen, you know, at least in Houston, Emancipation Park, which is this huge park in Third Ward, is getting redone. And there's going to be an outdoor performance area. So for me, there's ideas of like, then could I take it outside too? So I'm still trying to figure out exactly how to make, but for me, I guess I'm not calling it an exhibition, I'm trying to call it a project that has a publication and discursive events and it's more of like I think what I'm really trying to do is get the group of artists together to I want to think alongside them, or have them think alongside me, or bring them to Houston so that we can look at the images together and then kind of think through some things together. So I think it's just what I've found is that administratively it becomes a harder process to get off the ground, because you're disrupting all of the typical ways that institutions work.
For all the programs at Diverse Works, is the exhibition space, and you have a theater space as well, right? Are they always in conversation with each other, or do you?
No.
Is it two separate programs, and then if you have the opportunity to sort of create this multi-faceted project?
We have a particular situation in the sense of that we have a lease and license agreement with a building. So much like you guys here, where there's another entity that owns and operates the building, and then we are, the offices are housed in the building, and then we kind of sign up for space in the different theaters. And there are other performing arts organizations that also present in there. So it become, you have some issues of kind of branding and marketing that happen, but at the same time, it's called The Match. It's Midtown Arts and Theater and Culture in Houston. And the idea is that the theaters are all different sizes and they can do different things. So one of them is very small. It can do has white walls. The other one is a dance space, and then there's a more black box, and then a lecture hall. So you can do different projects in different spaces. That's the idea, I guess. It's very new for us. We've only been there. So these two projects that I'm presenting you, that's we just did those in January. So I think some of it we're still trying to figure out how that works.
What's the use of the dancers or the persons taking the dance classes in Taisha's and Ashley's piece that you showed? Was that simply a device because you needed to find local people to participate in the ongoing dance class, or was that?
She's thinking about making a dance company that is an intentional community, and that got made in LA, and she wanted to do it as a one-year company is what she set out. So those members, some of them were trained dancers, some of them were community workers, some of them were artists, visual artists, some of them were writers. They came from a whole variety of backgrounds. And then she was really interested when we talked about the Houston and Austin, that the members from LA got the opportunity to meet the members from Houston, and that together they would collectively create a new score, and use improvisation and prompts to kind of go. And the same with Houston. So the members were one of them was a visual artist, but her partner teaches breakdancing class. And then the other one, the other one was a college student that I kind of roped into it's just a variety of different skill sets. But the idea was that we tried to hold auditions, which didn't exactly work in the same way that it did in Los Angeles. And some of that, again, is from Houston, that there's just not a kind of casting call for auditions regularly. Call for participants is a different way of structuring it. So, she wanted it to be a group of people that were politically and ideologically aligned with some of the questions that she was interested in posing to them, and that they were willing to work together as a group. And that they came up with the classes themselves. So it was more like it became kind of, I don't know, somewhere between a dance rehearsal group and like a reading club or a weekly meeting. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think it's also very generous to invite us to think with you a little bit of Walker Evans' idea. I'm wondering how, maybe I missed it, but how did he draw your attention really? You know, the first two images you showed us. And how did this start? You know, why Walker Evans in 2016?
I know. I mean, some of it started with when I was at Bard and I was researching Aaron Sheriff and thinking about artists who use sculpture and photography, and I was thinking a lot about evidence because of Tom Keenan, who works there, who does the Human Rights Project there. And I was thinking he wrote this book about Mengele's skull. So it's the Nazi doctor that essentially did experiments on people, and that there was an instance where they found his skull and they were questioning whether or not it was him. And this is before DNA evidence. So what they did was they exhumed the body, had the skull, and then they projected the image of his face onto the skull. And there was like multiple anthropologists and people going around studying. So it was like, and Tom talks a lot about this, of like our like cultural shifts in the form of evidence. So like when Hannah Arendt writes about evidence, and she talks about the woman fainting on stand, and how this was a disruption in the truth telling, and that began a kind of, that eyewitness testimony was no longer a given, the meaning that something had happened. And then, you know, we moved into archives, and that was where the information was found. And then we move into forensics, and that we're kind of in this moment of forensics having the power to dictate what, or proving or disproving if something happened. So I think for me it was like something happened where that kind of those theoretical ideas really inspired me in how I was thinking about photography and sculpture. And so then I just kept kind of noodling on that. And yeah, and then I found out about these images because of Aaron Sheriff and the beauties of the common tool. And then I found these images. So it's like something in the treatment of the object and how he's staging it, I found very interesting.
And these were commissioned?
Yeah. So in the sense of like, and I just recently talked with Virginia, who was a curator at the Met, and put this project together. And she said that when she did it, this is in 2001, and this is at the moment that Walker Evans Archives came to the Met, and she couldn't, so the photography curator is curating a big retrospective of Walker Evans, and she was like, well, we have these prints, and I would like to show them, you know, as part or in conjunction with this Walker Evans. So she was trying to make a case that these are actually, so what happened was in the show, she actually shows the photographs, and then she showed some of the actual objects, because the Met actually owns some of those objects that are in the photographs. And they rotated the pictures out 2 or 3 times because there's 400 of them, so they put them on display. She said that she couldn't get her photography colleague to take the photographs as serious Walker Evans works. He wouldn't include them as part of the retrospective. She had to do this isolated exhibition that was put up at the same time, but that they were dismissed as part of Walker Evans' body of work, which I also find very odd. and again, I don't know, there's loads to say about this. It's also, then I started, I feel like what happened was I then tumbled into more information about Walker, and then I realized that these were made, only a year and a half before he made these other ones. So all of a sudden you have kind of a 2-year window where the same kind of lens is being cast. And this was really like him going into the rural South after the Depression, documenting what happened. And that was through the Farm Security Administration. He had gotten paid to do this. And then also simultaneously, he's working for Fortune magazine, which is where these come from. So he's doing these like photo spreads and then writing these little texts as well. So I feel like I haven't quite figured out all of my argument or what exactly, and I almost feel like I have too much information, so I'm really I need some, I need like a group to do it with a group. I find that I can't solo author this. Like this is a project that needs multiple voices in it.